I'm going to mention a couple things quickly here in chapters 4 and 5 before we move on to some more important symbols in chapters 6, 7, and 8. So chapters 4 and 5, we're not going to mention much. The main activity is basically concerning the kind of childhood games that Scout and Dill and Jem are playing. We also want to think about their education culturally. What they're doing usually is acting and pretending. And they're doing some of that based on the rumors and the gossip that we've heard. But they're also hearing kind of like folklore, folk tales, and superstition. And so when we think about the whole issue of, and we're going to come to this passage here in a moment, the formation of identity. When you did your worksheets about bias, prejudice, and so on, there are lots of factors that are forming us. There's our family, there's our culture, our country, the time period we're in. There can be religion, social customs, etc. And so lots of factors are forming the identity of the children. And remember, on this whole issue of identity, that we're in a building novel, right? So we're building Scout, really, Jem too, but more so Scout. And so we're in this innocent period still. That innocence is going to get killed, right? To kill a mockingbird. We're going to get to the mockingbird symbol, the mockingbird as a symbol of innocence and doing good and so on. Well, there's going to be actually Scout's innocence as a kind of mockingbird that's going to get killed. She's going to mature. She's going to grow up. And we see some stories that kind of folklore and superstition that's being told in connection to the children and their view of sort of supernatural and ghosts and things. So this is the whole thing about the hot steam. Well, what is that? Hot steam. Let's see if I can make a circle. All right. Hot steam. What's a hot steam? Asked Dill. Haven't you ever walked along a lonesome road at night and passed by a hot place? Jem asked Dill. Hot steam's somebody who can't get to heaven, just wallows around on lonesome roads. And if you walk through them, when you die, you'll be one too. And you'll go around at night sucking people's breath. How can you keep from passing through one? You can't, said Jem. Sometimes they stretch all the way across the road, but if you have to go through one day, angel bright, life and death, get off the road, don't suck my breath. That keeps them from wrapping around you. Don't you believe a word he says, Dill? I said. Calpurnia says that's nigger talk. Jem scowled darkly at me, but said, well, are we going to play anything or not? Okay, so what's going on here? Well, this is like a folklore, superstitious. This is from, like uneducated people have these ideas. And they pass on these stories and these tales, and children pick it up. And that's part of their education in a way. They're going to have to mature out of this. So at this point, they are very immature, but Jem is sort of the leader telling these, supposedly facts about the real world. Notice what Scout says, though. Calpurnia says that's nigger talk. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, that means like uneducated folklore, not based in reality. And it's a kind of beliefs that people who are poorer and uneducated would have. So that's interesting. Well, Calpurnia is black, okay? But she doesn't hold these beliefs, but she's saying something against her own race, okay? So it's a kind of like self-racism, but it's an issue in the division of this idea of education. Calpurnia is better educated than the average black person in the town. Now, they're playing all these games and so forth and doing the Boo Radley game as well. And I'm going to go to the end of chapter 4 here. And it says, one day we were so busily playing chapter 25, book 2 of One Man's Family, we did not see Atticus standing on the sidewalk looking at us, slapping our old magazine against his knee. The sun said 12 noon. What are you playing? He asked. Nothing, said Jem. Jem's evasion told me our game was a secret. So I kept quiet. What are you doing with those scissors then? Why are you tearing up that newspaper? If it's today's, I'll tan you. Nothing. Nothing what? Said Atticus. Nothing, sir. Give me those scissors, Atticus said. There are no things to play with. Does this by any chance have to do with the Radleys? No, sir, said Jem, reddening. I hope it doesn't, he said shortly, and went inside the house. Jem! Shut up. He's gone in the living room. He can hear us in there. Safely in the yard, Dill asked Jem if we could play any more. I don't know. Atticus didn't say we couldn't. Jem, I said, I think Atticus knows it anyway. No, he don't. If he did, he'd say he did. I was not so sure, but Jem told me I was being a girl. That girls always imagine things. That's why other people hated them so. And if I started behaving like one, I could just go off and find some to play with. All right. You just keep it up then, I said. You'll find out. Atticus's arrival was the second reason I wanted to quit the game. The first reason happened the day I rolled into the Radley front yard. Through all the head-shaking quelling of nausea and Jem yelling, I had heard another sound, so low I could not have heard it from the sidewalk. Someone inside was laughing. All right, what's going on here? A few things. Okay, so the kids, this is their main event, the main play activity. They've done so many versions about the Radley family that they're up to like chapter 25, book 2. Okay, so they're really going on and on, play acting. Well, what's going on? They're doing this in front of the Radley house. Well, this is going to be important later. We're going to see Boo Radley is watching the kids, the games. And Boo Radley is going to later give gifts and protection to the people who are kind of persecuting him and making fun of him. Well, what does Atticus think about all this? Atticus is strongly against bias and prejudice against anyone for any reason. So Boo Radley, he may have a mental illness. We don't know exactly what's wrong with him. We don't know exactly if he really attacked his dad or not. However, Atticus is very strong with his moral principle. Don't do it. Put yourself in their shoes. Okay? And another important thing that happens here is one of the first awakenings of Scout to actually become more mature Okay, so this is a beginning of her sort of awakening and maturing process. So finding the gifts later that Jem finds, and hearing Boo Radley laugh, Boo Radley putting the blanket on her shoulders during the fire at Miss Maudie's, all these things, but this is the first kind of beginning where she starts to think something differently or slightly perceive new truth about Boo. And we're going to see in chapter 5 a similar incident where Atticus is going to get a bit firmer. So if you go right to the end of chapter 5, I've got my book here, but I'm using this PDF as well, so let's find it. It's on page 54 in the book. And so Atticus finds them playing the game again, and they're depicting Boo Radley as a vampire. Yeah. Okay, here it is. So notice here, shoulder up, I reeled to face Boo Radley and his bloody fangs. Okay, so we're in the sort of Dracula monster realm, portraying Boo Radley as a killer monster. Well, that's going to be important. There's going to be a murder later. Self-defense, killing. It's going to involve Boo Radley, right? But Atticus sees this, and he has a final warning here. Son, he said to Jem, I'm going to tell you something and tell you one time. Stop tormenting that man. That goes for the other two of you. What Mr. Radley did was his own business. If he wanted to come out, he would. If he wanted to stay inside his own house, he had the right to stay inside, free from attentions of inquisitive children, which was a mild term for the likes of us. How would we like it if Atticus barged in on us without knocking when we were in our rooms at night? We were, in effect, doing the same thing to Mr. Radley. What Mr. Radley did might seem peculiar to us, but it did not seem peculiar to him. Furthermore, had it never occurred to us that the civil way to communicate with another being was by the front door instead of a side window? Lastly, we were to stay away from that house until we were invited there, and we were not to play an asinine game he had seen us playing, or make fun of anybody on this street or in this town. All right. Notice Atticus calls him Mr. Radley. So Atticus is showing respect and sensitivity and empathy. And he perceives that maybe there's a reason that he's staying inside of his own house. It did not seem peculiar to him. So Atticus is bringing this whole issue of perspective. Perspective. 1 second. I'm running out of time, and the computer looks like it's crashing or something. All right. And we're going to see, why does Boo Radley not come out? He has another reason. Maybe he doesn't like this society after all. He's doing the sane thing. All right.